Hey everyone, welcome to another Christus Quilting Services video. I'm building a design wall, and with my husband, I definitely couldn't do this without him. And in the background you can see kind of the main structure of it with the plywood. And that plywood, we bought 3 panels of it. They come in 4 by 8 feet sizes, and we had it all cut down at the store to some dimensions that were going to work for us, partly to get them home and partly to work with the 2 by 2 design wall or craft pieces of styrofoam insulation. So I needed something that wasn't going to be permanent. I need to be able to take it apart and reassemble it. We rent the place that we live in, and we also don't have a finished basement or anywhere where we can really attach a wall. And so the plywood at the back, or in the background, has been screwed together, well supported, and it's just sort of resting against the cement wall on a bit of an angle. And the top 2 panels run 4 by 4, so I'll be able to place 4 of these on each of those panels. And then the bottom panel is 3 feet by 2 feet, and that keeps everything about a foot off the floor. And I'll have a total of 6 feet by 8 feet to work with when I'm done getting everything attached. So because these panels are smaller, and because I wanted to kind of glue them on, when this whole thing comes apart, it'll come apart into 4 sections with all the design wall covered pieces attached to it. And today I am taking some of the scrap batting that I have, all kinds of various sizes of pieces. Some, like the one on my table, are big enough to cover the entire piece, and I'll be cutting this. I only need enough, I'm stapling it down a little bit to cover the back. It doesn't need to cover the whole front and the back. I want this part here to be making contact with the plywood when that gets glued on. And so my other pieces aren't big enough, but they're big enough to go halfway down, and so I have just been creating kind of stapling them together to join that seam. And in the future, if I need to add more staples to this, I'll just take that staple gun and staple wherever I need to. Once they're all covered, they'll hopefully be glued permanently. We haven't quite figured out how to do that part just yet. Okay, so for the covering aspect of these panels, I only need just enough on my one side to bring it around to the front, to the back and secure it. It doesn't have to come around very far to the back, like even a finger width is fine. And some of the other pieces were really close. They only really managed, just because they're cut crooked, they only managed to come just to the top of the front, and parts aren't even completely wrapped around, while other areas might be. So I know I just need that much here, and I am going to give myself an estimated amount of room to come on this side. And I'm just going to cut it across, because this piece of batting will do one more panel. I'm so glad that I have these scraps of batting that I can use up for this. And if I've got some, like these other edges are just going to be a little further over, it's just what it is. That's all good and centered. That looks good there. And turn this camera view just a bit so you can get a better view here. And I have this Easy Shot staple gun, and that's all I've been using to secure everything down. Okay, let's try that again. So those two sides are done, and now it comes down to here. And with this, I have just been giving this a little bit of a cut around and down, so that way ultimately I can just flip this side over, and this part here extra in the corner, I just cut that off later. I think I came across one person who had that already. She had just already cut out these squares on the corners, which I suppose you could do too. For myself, it's just easier to cut it as I go. Then I don't have to worry about if I'm like exactly lining up in the right spot or not, because I'm just trimming that off to where it needs to be at the end. And it's up to you how nice you want to have this looking, if you're just gonna trim it off, or if you want to try and like tuck the edges, which I did on a couple. But this one, I think I'm just going to trim off the extra and not worry about tucking anything in. These pieces are all going to be kind of butt up one beside each other, so really I don't want any extra bulk, and I'm hoping for the most part that these corners, as we have in 2 layers folded over, don't affect the ability to get this glued onto the plywood. So I'm going to finish this one off and do the corners the same way I showed with this one, and then we'll be back with an update on how it goes getting everything glued to the plywood panels in the back. And because I purchased 16 of these and only 12 are going on the back, we do have an extra 4x4 piece of plywood where I'll use 4 extras and make a smaller, more portable board, and that'll just be smaller blocks. Like the back one's going to get the whole quilt laid out on it, and that smaller one is going to be sections that I might be working on much closer to my sewing machine, because going around, walking to that, taking things off, putting it back on, that is going to be, I think, a lot of work. Maybe easier if I didn't have a long arm frame in the way, but I have no other wall on which I can lean that whole thing. All right, well, I will post some updates. We are ready to do our test panel. Richard's got the glue that we found, and it's supposed to be special glue that won't destroy the styrofoam. And we're just gonna put some glue in the back. We have a smaller piece of plywood that's 4x4, and it's going to be a smaller design board, but also our test practice piece. So I guess go ahead and put some glue on it.
It says 2 X's on it, but
The normal instructions would suggest that
relax.
there might be like drywall on the other side of it, and the whole thing would be screwed together, and so it would help hold this. But obviously there's not going to be drywall, and when I did put this against the plywood, we have the rough side going to the back of this, and the batting are actually just kind of holding the whole thing up by itself. So we're hoping that this will all just kind of stick and hold. We're gonna hold it on for a little bit, and hopefully in the morning when we get back up, this will still be on there. I think that might be
I'm just playing now.
a lot of glue. Okay, here goes nothing.
Hold it for about 30 seconds.
Squish it, and we figure if we give it like a little bit of time, it will hopefully seal. I don't know. We don't have like clamps. But with the big one, we couldn't clamp it anyway if we wanted to, so.
No, hold on till morning.
Well, we're just gonna leave it like that. We got one corner sticking. I have no idea how much is actually the glue or how much is the batting holding it up, but we will find out and let you know. It is time to see how everything went from last night. I have not yet been downstairs, so I don't know if the covered panel has stayed glued to the plywood yet, but let's find out together. And it looks like it's still up. Okay, I guess we will be gluing on the rest of these onto the smaller design board, and then we will go on to the big one. Okay. Richard
No,
is here.
Just start over. We screwed that up right out the bat.